everybody, welcome back to Fox Tower Creations. Today we're making little mini molds. So where we got these was 3D printed by Scott at Evil Grin Studios. If you haven't followed him, check him out, he's amazing. We're going to be using Monster Clay medium to allow for us to make little spaces so that our molds will be able to be filled. And we're going to be using, of all the things, Legos to actually build the mold. So the mold making material we're using is from BB Dino. I haven't played much with this, but I've heard some good things about it, so let's find out together. What we're making the walls of our mold out of is Legos. It's the easiest thing to do, they're easy to stack. Just remember, when you were a kid, when you played with them, make sure you cover up the seams with another set. Now I have these already spaced out and I have them kind of set in their spot. Now what we're going to do with our little miniatures is we're going to take our Monster Clay and we're actually going to mold it to the bottom of our pieces. What that does is that when the mold material solidifies, it allows you an opening for you to pour your resin. Now this does two things. It keeps it in place and it also keeps it from floating. So just in case it gets sat down there. The last thing I wanted to mention was how I made the placement for this. When I look at the base, I also look at how wide the piece is or how long or what the dimensions are. I leave one row of dots on every side and then I can start building up the walls. One other thing to note, you can rough up the bottom and it might stick a little easier, but what I'm doing is going right over the base with my clay. It's not gonna mess this up because I can just drill it out later. I'm using Monster Clay. That doesn't mean that you have to. Just that was the brand that worked the best for what I was doing. Microwave this for about 15 seconds, 15 to 30 depending, and it makes it a heck of a lot easier to work with. So these guys are pretty well on there. Now we get to set up our walls. This is probably takes the longest. And remember, you can get Legos. Just remember, the biggest thing you want to do is make sure that your seams overlap with Legos, especially with this stuff because you don't want it going everywhere. Now, I like doing double layers. That doesn't mean you have to. That's just a me thing. We've got it all laid out, everything looks good, but this one's still taller than everybody else. This right here is why I love Legos, because even though this one needs a little bit more height, we don't have to do it for the other ones. So all I gotta do is just build up these 4 walls for this one, and then we're set to go. So let's get to mixing our materials. Pro trick, you can blow open your gloves. And that makes them a little easier to put on. Now, before I get to this, I'll show you guys something. See how there's a line here that's straight up and down? It's just, I just didn't get a chance to overlap that. A little nervous, not gonna lie, about maybe resin coming out of there. Take a little bit, and I just kind of squish it in there. Now, if you're like me and you're really paranoid, you can always go around this with some resin tape. And that holds just as well, or masking tape, or whatever kind of tape you have handy. I'd be careful with anything as strong as boxing tape or Tyvek, because that stuff's hard to get off. The BB Dino is 1-to-1 by volume, not by weight. However, if you are working with a mold material that goes by weight, remember to zero out your cup. That is extremely important. I'll show you why. So you have 0 here, but your cup still has weight. That will throw off your measurements, and that is not good for your stuff because it won't cure if it's got the wrong amount. So instead of having actual measuring cups, because all of mine are silicone, and this will ruin silicone cups because it's silicone, we're using clear cups. Okay, so far 2 things that I like about BB Dino is that you actually have 2 different colors, so you don't mix the caps up and seal stuff. Should I be eyeballing this? Absolutely not, but we're gonna eyeball it anyway. They did give you stir sticks. They're pretty sturdy, but I also have my regular plastic stir stick just in case. I swear by these things. All right, and like with everything else, always, always, always scrape the sides, scrape the bottom, make sure you get everything off of everything. So the other thing about clear cups, you can see how consistent the color is. So I think this is ready to pour. Steffi, if you're watching, I totally didn't think of getting you a whole set of beakers for Christmas just for your resin experiments. I totally didn't think about doing that. So, with only a little bit of leaking around the base and just a smidge in between the blocks, I mean, so far so good. This is a success. I'm not seeing any bubbles come out, which is actually pretty impressive. So I'm not even going to bother with using the pressure pot with this. As far as the material is concerned, the BB Dino mold making material, this stuff is pretty good. It's easy to mix. It's got a great way to make sure that it's completely, like, you've got one side that's colored and one side that's not. So you know when you have a homogeneous mixture, which is pretty awesome. The sticks that come with it are pretty sturdy, so I'm pretty happy about that. We're gonna be letting this sit for the next 3 to 5 hours, so come back tomorrow and we'll see what we can do from there. So for you all, it might only be like a few seconds. For us, it was a couple of days. This only takes a few hours actually to cure. By the directions, demold time is 3 to 5 hours for your BB Dino. So at this point, everything's set. As you can see, it did leak a little bit, not that bad, to be honest. So yeah, we're good to go. So we're gonna demold this, and then I'm gonna show you how to actually cut the piece out. Now, since this is the first time that I played with BB Dino, I did not, in fact, use a mold release. The reason I did not is because I'm not 100% sure what kind of mold release would work well with this. I have had problems in the past where a mold release has actually bonded the stuff together. And so yeah, that's an issue. We've got our mold, we've got it taken out, everything's good, looks real solid. Here's your clay. This is where you're gonna need this, or some other type of small cutting tool. So what you wanna do is where the clay is, you're gonna cut just a little bit outside of that first. Now, as you can see, I'm not cutting too deep. Once we get that circle around, I'm gonna go about here, and I'm gonna make zigzags, because what that'll do is that'll help to seal it. And I'm not going all the way down. You do not come all the way down to here. You leave at least an inch or two, okay? And you wanna be careful how deep you cut, because you don't wanna actually cut the figurine yet. And there's one side. This is where you come back in, spread it apart, come back in, and you just kind of gently open it up a little bit more. Yep. Yeah, if you're klutz like me, you want to use a paper towel or something to protect your fingers. All right, so you can see we're starting to open that up so we can pull this out. So continue down the other side. And there you go. So now we'll try, since we got our opening and everything, I actually recommend putting like some kind of rubber band or something that's going to squeeze this a little bit tight. All right, this is firm enough that it won't mold, it won't move the mold around. And I'm going to try a mold with it and see what happens. So one other side note, when you have all these scraps and everything, these are completely useful for making bigger molds. So, you know, all this scrap can just go into a bowl, you pour this stuff back over it, and it'll actually make it so that you have less material that you have to use next time. And that was actually picked up by Woodbrain. So thank you, Lindsay, for that. So today we're going to be using some of the leftover Luminite we have around. This is about a 45 to 90 minute demold time. We're still going to wait about 2 hours just in case. But we're going to do our new little mold, and I'm also going to do another 2-part mold that I'm making and see what happens. And do I know what half of this is in here? Yes, I know that half of it glows in the dark. So these are all Black Diamond Pigments. Try to pour high and thin so we get less air bubbles, even though we're putting it in a pressure pot. And of course I'm eyeballing level because I don't have a level right now. Now I normally put it a little over 60 because with this tank, and each tank is different, it sometimes will lose some pressure, so I put a little extra just in case. So now we got 2 hours to wait. So we used our Luminite Fast Cure. Takes about, they say 45 to 90 minutes, but I want to reiterate this. Sometimes it can take up to 2 hours depending on what your temperature is. But let's check our new mold. Now again, I did not use mold release with this because I'm still not sure how that's going to work. I will test that eventually. Oop. He doggone near came out exact, but his little antennas. I think for a first try, I think that was really good.
Yeah.
Still see all of the detail.
Yeah.
So that's how I do it. So while the bubbles were really, really tiny, there were really tiny bubbles, so I actually should have pressure potted this. However, they still came out pretty decent, and it actually, if you like that kind of thing, there's a really nice texture to these. So once we demolded, it looks like I really should have left that resin in the pressure pot a little bit more. There were more bubbles than what I expected. I thought I had timed it correctly so that they could just pressure pot for a minute and then I could take them out and then I could put my next project in, but this is why I need 2 pressure pots. So I'm hoping you enjoyed the video and our little mold experiment, and I hope you come back and see us again. Like, subscribe, save, check me out on Instagram as well as on TikTok, and hopefully I will see you all again soon. Bye.